There's an old joke. A man walks into a doctor's office. He tells the doctor he's been feeling hopeless, empty, like nothing matters anymore. The doctor listens carefully. Then he says, "I have just the solution. The great clown Pagliacci is performing tonight. Go see him. He'll make you laugh. He'll lift your spirits." The man is silent for a long moment. Then he says, "But doctor, I am Pagliacci." That joke is 150 years old. And yet the moment you heard it, something shifted. Because somewhere in your life, you know a Pagliacci. Maybe it's the person in your friend group who always has a joke ready. The one who walks into any room and immediately makes everyone lighter. The one who, when things get tense, says exactly the right funny thing. Everyone loves them. Everyone assumes they're fine. And yet, what if I told you that science has now confirmed what that 150-year-old joke already knew? That the funniest person in the room is often the one carrying the most pain. Not sometimes, not occasionally, consistently, statistically, measurably. Because here's what researchers actually found when they looked closely. A study published in the British Journal of Psychiatry looked at 523 professional comedians and compared them with 364 actors. Both groups were performers. Both spent their lives in front of audiences. But the comedians were completely different in one specific way. They scored dramatically higher on what psychologists call psychotic personality traits. Not psychotic in the dramatic sense, but traits like unusual thinking, emotional detachment, and a reduced ability to feel social pleasure. But here's where it gets interesting. Researchers found that comedians were unique outliers in one particular trait. They scored higher than actors, higher than athletes, higher than the general population on something called introvertive anhedonia, the inability to feel social pleasure the way most people do. Think about that for a second. The people who dedicate their lives to making others feel joy are often the ones biologically less capable of feeling it themselves. They aren't performing happiness, they're searching for it. And every laugh they get from the room is a temporary answer to a question they can't stop asking. Now here is where it goes deeper. Researchers Seymour and Rhoda Fisher spent years studying the psychology of professional comedians. What they found wasn't just surprising, it was unsettling. The funniest people they studied were disproportionately likely to have come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, to have faced significant adversity early in life, to have had complicated relationships with their parents. Humor, they concluded, wasn't just a personality trait. It was a survival skill learned under pressure. When you grow up in a household where tension is the default, you figure out very quickly that making someone laugh is the fastest way to dissolve danger. You learn to read the room before you can even articulate what the room is. You learn that a perfectly timed joke can stop an argument in its tracks, that being funny makes you lovable, and being lovable keeps you safe. And that pattern doesn't disappear when childhood ends. It follows you into your friendships, into your relationships, into every room you ever walk into. You become the person who deflects with humor because somewhere deep in your nervous system, that's what survival felt like. There's another layer to this. Psychologists who study humor have identified 4 distinct humor styles. The way you joke is actually a window into your inner world. There's affiliative humor, using jokes to connect with others, to bond, to make people feel included. Then there's self-enhancing humor, finding the comic absurdity in life's difficulties, a way of coping from a place of psychological strength. And then there are the other 2. Aggressive humor, using jokes to ridicule or put others down. And the one that researchers have flagged as genuinely alarming, self-defeating humor. You know this person. Maybe you are this person. The one who makes themselves the punchline every single time. Oh, that's such a me thing to do. Classic disaster that I am. Who invited me, honestly? Everyone laughs, including them. And it seems like self-awareness. It seems like confidence even. Like they're so secure they can laugh at themselves. But researchers conducted a longitudinal study of over 1,200 adolescents and tracked them for years. What they found should make you stop and think. Self-defeating humor consistently predicted 2 things over time: an increase in depressive symptoms and an increase in loneliness. And here's the part that breaks the cycle open. The more depressed people became, the more they used self-defeating humor. And the more self-defeating humor they used, the more depressed they became. A spiral that looks like but moves in one direction only. But there's something most people don't realize. This kind of humor isn't random. Research shows it is strongly linked to rumination and brooding, which means every joke about how useless they are, how they always mess things up, how nobody should trust them with anything, is not actually a joke. It's a thought they cannot stop having, dressed up in punchline clothing so it can leave their body without anyone noticing. They are telling you every single time, and nobody is hearing it. This is what psychoanalysts call the manic defense. Sigmund Freud described humor as the highest of all psychological defense mechanisms. Unlike repression, which buries pain, or denial, which pretends the pain isn't there, humor does something far more sophisticated. It looks the pain directly in the face, and then it laughs. The ego, Freud argued, refuses to be distressed by the provocations of reality. It refuses to let suffering have the final word, and so it wraps the suffering in something else, something that gets applause. Donald Winnicott, the psychoanalyst, took this further. He argued that the mind uses joking specifically to escape primitive guilt and separation anxiety. By becoming the entertainer, the funny one, the person who makes the room light up, the individual avoids going inward. They keep the performance running so the silence never gets loud enough to hear. Think about the people you know who are always on, always ready with something funny, never sitting still, never comfortable with quiet, who fill every lull in conversation before it can breathe. What they are doing, neurologically and psychologically, is running from something they are not ready to face. And the tragedy is that everyone around them is actively rewarding them for running. The research on Robin Williams changed something in how we understand this. After his death in 2014, researchers documented a nearly 10% increase in suicides in the months that followed, particularly among men aged 30 to 44. The world was not just grieving a comedian. They were blindsided because every signal they had was wrong. Everything pointed to fine. Everything pointed to thriving. This is what clinicians now call smiling depression. It's not a performance of happiness. It's deeper than that. It is a state where the internal world and the external presentation have completely disconnected, where the laugh is real in the moment, but the pain underneath never left. And research identified something critical about this state. In smiling depression, there are 3 ways humor changes. It can decrease, which most people recognize as sadness. It can become pathological, where it masks pain in manic bursts. Or it can become a mask, where the only purpose of laughter is to reduce the significance of what's actually happening inside. Not fake, not manufactured. A mask so practiced it has become the face. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, called humor a weapon of the soul. He and his fellow prisoners committed to creating one funny story every day, because humor was the one tool that kept psychological distance between them and their circumstances. Dr. Shaya Ostrower's research on survivors identified humor as the primary barrier against despair in the camps, which tells you something profound. Humor is not weakness. It is not denial. At its best, it is one of the most sophisticated things the human mind can do. It is the soul refusing to be reduced to its circumstances. But there is a difference between choosing humor as a response and having no other option. There is a difference between the person who laughs because they have found peace with the absurdity of life and the person who laughs because the alternative is letting someone see how bad it actually is. One is strength. The other is an emergency system that has been running so long nobody remembers it's an emergency. So the next time the funniest person you know makes another joke about themselves, the next time they deflect something real with a perfectly timed line, the next time they make the whole room laugh and then go quiet for just 1 second before smiling again, stay in that second. Ask a different question. Not what's the joke, but how are you actually doing? Because sometimes the funniest thing someone says is the most honest thing they've said all year, and they're waiting to see if anyone noticed. If this video made you think of someone specific, send it to them. Not with a big explanation, just send it. Sometimes the right thing doesn't need words at all.